morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a slightly grimbly day. It's trying to rain a bit, but I am cruising on my boat, and any day when you are cruising is better than any day when you are not. So today I thought we would talk a little bit about advice for hire boaters. Now, just before we get into this, I should say I'm not talking about the sort of advice about how to operate a lock, or how a boat works, or how an engine works, or anything like that. When you hire a canal boat, if you're thinking about hiring one, you'll get a really good briefing. You will get staff to show you how it works, show it how it handles, and all that should be fine. And you will learn on the go as well. It's terribly daunting as an idea, but actually when you start doing it, it's not so bad. I'm talking about advice, more sort of etiquette and planning advice, sorts of things that you don't necessarily get told when you hire a boat. Now, the canal system at its peak of the industrial era had about 10,000 boats on it. Nowadays it has about 35,000 boats on it. So it is a busy place with lots and lots of boats. And an absolutely key plank of that is hire boats. They are so important for the lifeblood of the canals. They are so important to bring money into the canals, and they're so important so that the canals can be used for what their purpose nowadays is, which is as a source of leisure and pleasure and good mental health. However, there are some things that will help you get the most out of that, and I've sort of divided them up into categories, more or less at random, which I will blether about as we go along the canal. Number one is speed. If you look up on canal boats, you will find that there is a speed limit on the canals of 4 miles an hour, 4 mph. Now, experience suggests that it is extremely unlikely that you will be doing 4 miles an hour very much of the time. Most canal boats have a speed that they like to do, and mostly it's not 4 miles an hour. This boat, for example, Utopia Limited, likes to do a touch over 3 miles an hour. You can push it to 4 if you really try, but you can tell that it doesn't like it very much. And this is relevant because especially new hire boaters don't always understand the implications of exactly what 4 miles an hour is. So in order to discuss that, let's talk a little bit about momentum. Momentum is essentially a measure of how difficult a boat is to start or stop, how difficult any object is to start or stop. And it is the object's mass multiplied by its speed. So if you think about being hit in the face by a ping pong ball as opposed to being hit in the face by a brick, the brick would hurt more, and that's because it has more mass and therefore more momentum, even though they're going at the same speed. Well, this canal boat weighs 22 tonnes. So when I'm going at 4 miles an hour, okay, 22 tonnes at 4 miles an hour would be 88 tonne mile an hour. Okay, I appreciate that's a slightly odd unit, but it is 88 tonnes mile an hour. Now, if you consider a little car like a Fiat Panda, that would probably weigh 1 tonne. So that is the same amount of momentum as a Fiat Panda going at 88 miles an hour. Okay, so you've got to consider that. If you're going up 4 miles an hour and you hit against a wall, you're going to hit with the same momentum as a Fiat Panda going at 88 miles an hour. So, speed is not always good, and also speed, bearing in mind, is really not the point of the canal system. If you are pushing to go 4 miles an hour, you may be going too fast. So what I would advise you do is download onto your phone one of those GPS speedometer apps, and when you're going along, check what speed the boat being comfortable speed is. You will learn quite quickly actually what 2 miles an hour feels like as distinct from 3 miles an hour, as distinct from 4 miles an hour. So at the moment, I'm going along at about 2.5 miles an hour. Now, bearing in mind, I've just put the throttle up a bit, bearing in mind that my boat It's heavy, it's going to take some time to accelerate, but this is now more like 3 miles an hour, and there is a clear bit coming up, so I shall show you what 4 miles an hour feels like. I don't like this. The engine doesn't sound, I mean, it's not unhappy, but it's not, it's revving quite hard. The boat feels twitchy and unstable, and the tiller is vibrating in my hand. So not for me, thanks. I'll go with 3. Now, you will have been told to slow down past boats, and I'll come to exactly more detail on that a bit later, but basically you will be told just put it into idle to go past boats. That's a good idea. Realistically speaking, there are chunks of the canal system where there are boats lining both sides of the canal for miles and miles and miles and miles. So the rule that you need to be able to follow, if you know, so you can say if challenged that you have definitely followed the rules, is that it should be under 2 miles an hour. Okay, so that's why it's a good idea to take the GPS app and check. And 2, it should not be rocking or pulling the boats that you're passing on their moorings. In my experience, touch over idle is absolutely fine. It depends on the boat, of course. So that's speed. Don't try and do 4 miles an hour, it's not worth it. And that leads you on to part 2, which is planning. When you decide to go on a canal boat holiday, it's really exciting, and you'll probably do some planning. And that's a really good idea. If you have not yet bought any guidebooks, now would be a good time to buy either the Pearson's or the Collins guidebook. I prefer Pearson's, other people prefer Collins. There's very little to choose between them. Collins is based on Ordnance Survey maps and tends to be laid out vertically. Pearson's is slightly idiosyncratic, hand-drawn, well not hand-drawn, computer-drawn maps, and they tend to be laid out horizontally. It's up to you, it's just the style that you like. However, those guidebooks will always give you guide times, how many hours it will take to traverse a particular page. And they're all right as a rough guide, but they don't know your boat, and you don't know your boat yet, or maybe you do, maybe it's a boat you've hired every year for 30 years, but they don't know your boat. So don't plan your holiday based on doing 10 hours a day exactly on the numbers given in the guidebook. It's not going to pan out that way. It's just not. Okay? And in particular, there is a tendency for people to get enthusiastic and want to do the so-and-so ring, the Warwickshire ring. And that's great. But quite often, people will look at it like a ring that takes 2 weeks and go, nah, I can do that in 1 if we push it and do 10 hours a day. I cannot advise you strongly enough not to do that, because what happens is the guidebooks, maybe slightly optimistic. You don't make as good progress as you'd hoped. You get more than halfway through the holiday, and you've got more than halfway around the ring, and then suddenly you've got to belt as fast as you can, back along the canal for 12 hours a day to get back in time. It's just not fun. It's not, it's stressful and it's unpleasant, and that's the opposite of the point of a holiday. Another thing to say is, in terms of planning, a good website is Canal Route Planner AC. Google Canal Route Planner AC, and you will find a planner that will tell you how far from one place to another place, and you can say how fast you want to go and how fast you're working the locks, and it'll do all the calculations for you, and you can get that quite accurate once you know your boat. Of course, the problem is on a hire boat, you don't necessarily know your boat before you start, but it's a good place to go and at least check out. Another really important website is the Canal and River Trust Stoppages site, CRT Stoppages. Now, the canals are in crisis. Funding has been cut to the bone, and it is absolutely showing up in that more and more canals are being closed for longer and longer periods of time. It used to be, when the CRT had more money, that they'd do all their work in the winter and the canals would be open all summer. And that is no longer the case. So you need to Google CRT stoppages and have a look at the map and have a look at any red or black sections. Black sections are planned closures, red sections are unplanned closures. and have a look at when they are due to finish. Treat the finish date with a significant pinch of salt. Do not get 3/4 of the way around the ring because you know for a fact that the lock's going to open on the 28th because, you know, quids in, if you do that, the lock will be closed for another 2 weeks, and then you'll have to backtrack all the way around, and you'll end up costing yourself an awful lot of money. Okay? So yes, don't get ambitious with doing 2-week rings in a week. Yes, it can be done, but it is very, very risky. Okay, 3. Etiquette on board the boat. Canals are beautiful and quiet and peaceful, and ideally you should be looking to have a beautiful, quiet and peaceful time. So I would say it is generally frowned upon, and rightly so, to have a ghetto blaster blasting out tunes, to be shouting, screaming. I mean, like, kids, fine, kids have fun, but I mean, you know, like those groups that look like hen parties or stag do's, with, you know, screaming at each other. That's not for the canals. Go and do that in a nightclub somewhere. Ditto alcohol. Now, the hire boat companies will be very, very clear that you are not allowed to drink and drive the boats. Now, technically there's actually no law against it, but it is monumentally stupid. As discussed before, this has the same momentum as a Fiat Panda going at motorway speeds. You should not, you know, you wouldn't be pissed at a Fiat Panda, so don't be pissed at the hull of the canal boat. Really good advice, that. Take it. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about is other boaters on the canal. Now, for many, many years, there were relatively few other boaters on the canal, and it was generally lovely. And yes, you would meet the odd idiot. By the way, the bridge we're going under is an incredibly old railway bridge. It was one of the first railway bridges, and it was, if I'm not mistaken, designed and built by a Stevenson. So, look at that, hurrah. Nowadays, there are significantly more EJITs on the canal system because there are significantly more people who have bought boats as a housing solution rather than as a lifestyle boating experience. Now, they're not all horrible, and there's many, many lovely people, but when you go past some moored boats, there are an increasingly large number of people who will just, on principle, scream at you for going past too fast. They just will, okay? And the thing to do is to be really comfortable with your speed before you get screamed at. So for example, I would suggest download your GPS app, work out what slightly under 2 miles an hour is, okay, work so you're happy, and when people scream at you for going past too fast, don't scream back, but do say, I've checked my speed and I am happy with it, and leave that interaction at that. You will also come across a minority of boaters who simply despise the fact that hire boats exist at all. They're not right, I mean, you know, it's nonsense that the hire boats are the lifeblood of the system, but you will come across them. Just smile, stay out of their way. Okay, just stay out of them. You will come across people who don't want to share a lock with you. Just to be really clear, you should share wide beam locks with other boats where possible. You should wait for up to 10 minutes and have a cup of tea if you can see a boat coming along behind you, so you can go down locks together. It saves water, it's really important. You will come across boaters who don't want to do that, and when you can't force them to, you will come across boaters who try and aggressively come up a lock that was already set in your favour. I mean, all I can say is, you know, just let them be idiots, don't you be the idiot, let them be the idiots. And then, finally, I would warn you against a group of people called the National Association of Bargee Tramps. Now, it is possible that the individuals in this group are perfectly different, but the group itself is incredibly toxic. It essentially exists to campaign against being charged anything like a fair price to be on the canals. The cost of a licence fee has gone up. It's gone up by about 50% in the past few years, and there's a reason for that, which is that the canal and the river trust needs the money. Essentially, it's got up from 12% of what it costs the CRT to have this boat in the canal, up to nearly 16% of what it costs the CRT to have this boat in the canal. It's a fantastic bargain. And the NABT, I'm sorry, but they're just a toxic organisation, and I strongly suggest you stay away from their leafleting campaigns, stay away from their sort of virtue signalling little bits, and just don't believe the nonsense, the incorrect, factually rubbish bollocks they spout about the CRT. There are criticisms of the CRT which can be made. There's another group called NABO, N-A-B-O, National Association of Boat Owners. I don't agree with everything they say about the CRT, but at least, you know, they have an opinion, they state it, they don't just make stuff up when it doesn't suit their narrative. I think that is about all. I would encourage you to try a high boat trip. It is very, very beautiful, but always be prepared to be laid back, and nearly everyone you come across will be lovely, and if you come across someone who isn't lovely, let them go. It's like, you know, BMW drivers at a roundabout. Just let them go, let them get on with their lives, and you crack on with having a lovely time. I hope that was helpful. I hope if you do have a hire boat over the holidays that you enjoy it a lot, and maybe, just maybe, I will see you on the canal soon. Goodbye.